last decade or so, and he's made all of the power concentrated with him. The problem with that is China is failing right now in many respects. So he has all the power, but he will get all the blame. So he's doing one of two things here. Either he is trying to delegate so all of the blame doesn't fall on his shoulders, or the party around him sees that the country is failing in many respects and wants to rearrange or restructure the power arrangement in Beijing.
Right, but what would that look like, and what would the larger implications of that happening really be for China?
Yeah, I guess there's two major implications. Well, one is that the PLA is losing patience with Xi. The country's being run into the ground in many respects. And then, of course, you have the economic problems. And he's been able to run this economy basically in a circular economic structure where they overbuild property and real estate in China, and values go up. Valuations are exceedingly high. And that drives some of the economic growth at home, or at least the wealth effect. And then on the other hand, they're still just exporting cheap labor to the world. And while importing 40% of their food and a significant amount, they're the world's largest importer of oil and natural gas. So you have really an unsustainable economy. Property right now is 300, or a year ago, property was 300% of GDP. And that's before the correction in property values. But that's significantly higher than the averages around the world. The average property to GDP ratio should be around 102%. Even at the top in the rest of the world, it was 125% of GDP. And with China, 300%. That is completely unsustainable. And it's also making the banking system insolvent. Banks are 300% of Chinese GDP. That's 2 times what the U.S., the absolute value is 2 times the value of the U.S., and the U.S. is a significantly larger economy. So there are real economic weaknesses, and I think that's why the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, are growing frustrated with Xi. And you're seeing all this talk, like in the PLA newspaper, about collective power, or collective management. That's something you haven't seen in China in quite some time.
Right. What you're saying, Greg, also, indicates that there are larger systemic issues at play. So just replacing Xi Jinping, for example, will not really be the sure-shot solution. So what would that mean, and how would that really be processed in a country like China and in a system like China?
Yeah, it's a great question because, we don't know what the replacement will look like. But what we do know is that what they're doing now is not working. It's unsustainable. The banks are basically insolvent. The banking system is in real trouble. Property values are going to continue to go down. There's no economic justification for the values. Basically right now, an average home in China costs 25 times personal income, which is really outrageous. And so, it's unsustainable. I think they're going to have to make major structural changes. They're going to have to stop exporting cheap and slave labor. They're going to have to stop importing all their food. They're going to have to develop businesses at home that can help with sustain a consumerist economy. Right now, they're purely exporters, and there's basically very little consumption. It's all about property and all about being the world's factory floor and stealing IP. So I don't know what the solution is, but I do know what they're doing is not working.
Greg, before we let you go, if you were to summarize for our viewers how things really reached this point, and what time period would you suggest was absolutely crucial and a major contributor to things reaching here?
Yeah, I think it was clearly when Xi took more power. It wasn't just when he became the leader in the party. It was when he took and consolidated power around himself. And he basically ran the economy by running a $300 billion trade deficit with the U.S. and a significant trade deficit with the Europeans. And he was able to get away with that. Well, that's coming to an end with President Trump coming in. There is no way that he's going to sustain that economic model at the expense of the United States and our European trading allies. So this is a really difficult time for Xi. There has to be major change, and it can't just be something tactical. It has to be structural.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment, Greg Spencer. Thanks very much.
You.
Shifting focus for now. Is China's President Xi Jinping losing grip on power? Is he on his way out? Or is a silent coup in works against him? According to various reports, Xi Jinping was mysteriously absent from public view between late May and early June this year. And the absence created quite a flutter in Beijing and beyond. His 2-week absence has reportedly sparked questions about possible changes at the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party. Reports suggesting that several retired senior party leaders, including former President Hu Jintao, are increasingly playing a major part in the behind-the-scenes role. Hu Jintao, remember, was previously escorted out of the 20th Party Congress in the year 2022, a move widely seen as a show of Xi Jinping's dominance. Hu Jintao's apparent return to influence, hence, may signal a shift. Even Zhang Yuxia, once considered a close ally of Xi Jinping, is now set to be the de facto leader of the PLA. Zhang reportedly had a significant falling out with Xi Jinping after helping him secure a record third term, and Zhang is reportedly believed to have the backing of party elders aligned with former President Hu Jintao. That's not all. Reports suggest that Xi Jinping may also be losing support within the PLA. Several top generals perceived as loyal to Xi Jinping have either been purged or have died under mysterious circumstances. And their replacements are reportedly not seen as loyal to the current president. So there's clearly a lot happening. Another development raising eyebrows is the quiet removal of Xi's father's name from a mausoleum the Chinese president had helped build. And this was no ordinary mausoleum in terms of size. The monument reportedly was even bigger than those honoring former supreme leaders Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. In fact, in Xi Jinping's absence in late May and early June, foreign leaders visiting Beijing were reportedly received by other CCP leaders and not by the president himself. During this time, the People's Daily, the official newspaper of the CCP, reportedly stopped publishing images of the Chinese president on its front pages, breaking with the usual practice of praising Xi Jinping almost on a daily basis. Security changes around Xi Jinping have also been reported. His personal protection detail has reportedly been significantly reduced, fueling more speculation about his political future. Xi Jinping is also set to miss the upcoming BRICS summit in Brazil, which is taking place on July 6 and 7, marking the first time Xi Jinping would be missing any BRICS summit. According to some reports, a leadership transition is already being considered in China. Zhang Yuxia and senior CCP leaders are believed to be backing Wang Yang to potentially take over as the next CCP chairman. Wang, a veteran politician once mentored by former Supreme Leader Deng Xiaoping, was forced into retirement in the year 2023, but reportedly remains highly respected within party ranks. The upcoming CCP plenary session in August is expected to bring more clarity on the entire matter, even as there is growing speculation that Xi Jinping could be pushed into retirement or reassigned to a largely ceremonial role on the basis of ill health and amid increasing internal party pressure.
And China's iron-fisted leader is facing his greatest test yet. A new Communist Party regulations suggest Xi Jinping may finally be losing his grip, sparking speculation of delegation succession or retreat.
Could the once imperious ruler be confronting his own political nightmare? That's something we decode in this next report. Take a look.
Xi Jinping. For years, Xi Jinping has cultivated an aura of unchallenged absolute power, meticulously dismantling rivals and solidifying his position as China's most formidable leader since Mao. Now, a bombshell has detonated at the very core of Chinese power. New Communist Party regulations, quietly passed by the Politburo, are sending shockwaves. These rules are designed to standardize decision-making and empower party-coordinated institutes are more than bureaucratic tinkering. The new rules published in the state-run Xinhua demand that party organs plan, deliberate and oversee major policies, tasks one jealously guarded by Xi himself. Analysts are now locked in a fierce debate. Some argue these regulations signal Xi's intention to gradually step back from day-to-day governance, perhaps laying the groundwork for an orderly power transition or even preparing for retirement by the next CPC Congress in 2027 when Xi turns 75 years old. This interpretation is fueled by Xi's recent absence from the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, where Premier Li Qiang represented China, a first for Xi since assuming the presidency.
There's a lot of movement going on in the CCP right now, and recall that President Xi has consolidated power over the last decade or so, and he's made all of the power concentrated with him. The problem with that is China is failing right now in many respects. So he has all the power, but he will get all the blame. So he's doing one of two things here. Either he is trying to delegate so all of the blame doesn't fall on his shoulders, or the party around him sees that the country is failing in many respects and wants to rearrange or restructure the power arrangement in Beijing.
The very discussion of delegation of power, regardless of its ultimate intent, represents a chink in the armor of a leader previously seen as omnipotent. Amid mounting economic pressures, including the ongoing tariff war with the US and a collapse of the housing market, local governments are straining under debt burdens. Consumer confidence